Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel Wisdom Circle. How's everyone doing? Happy Monday. We are live and we are here. We're ready. We are ready to give you the messages that you need to receive, okay, from the cosmic. Don't worry about why I have to do all of this, but that's how it is. We're just massaging it into your skulls and into your craniums right now. Anyway, so what we're going to, as we always do on the channel Wisdom Circle, is give you messages from the cosmic collective consciousness. Cosmic collective consciousness comes through me, speaks through me, and mixes with my personality, and then we rock and roll. So today, they want to talk about how to become your own writer of your story, the writer of your own story. And a lot of you have heard a lot about like manifestation and things like that. What we're talking about today is a little different. It is manifestation, but we're also taking it a step further because being the writer of your own story is about taking control over your life and your story. What is your story? Your story, every story has an arc. Every story a has a beginning and an end, but the end never really begins. I mean, the end never really ends because the ending is always a new beginning. So they also want to talk about not just being the writer of your own story, but while you are writing your story, understanding the laws of impermanence on your journey and understanding the need to pivot, the need to take an extra turn, the need to reroute sometimes when you are on your journey. And being the writer of your own story in all of that context is really about you taking pen to paper, so to speak. Okay, you can think of that pen as your thoughts, that pen as your actions, that pen as your energy. Okay, your inner world reflects your outer world, and your inner world creates your outer world. So that pen in the analogy of writing your own story, that pen is everything within you that then projects outward. But again, action is also a part of that pen. And the paper is the fabric of reality, the fabric of your reality and your own personal journey. We all have a different journey. Good day to you as well. Buenos dias to you as well. We all have our own journey, and we're not meant to have the same journey someone else is meant to have. We are meant to have our own journey. But the beautiful thing is, you have the ability to write your own story, to create your own journey. So when you are moving down your path, I'm going to just ask a question. When you are moving down your path, are you writing your journey? Are you writing your story, or is someone else writing your story? I want you to think about that in the reality that you're living right now. Did you create this reality intentionally? And when I say writing your own story, they're talking about intentionally writing your own story. Because we can just be on a boat and just float anywhere. That's not writing your own story. Writing your own story has to do with intention and action and all the things that I mentioned earlier. So, the where you are right now in your life, we all created everything either through our inaction or either through our action or inaction, through our passive through our passive uh, kind of nonchalantness or through our intentional action. So either way, you created your reality that you're in right now. But did you create this reality intentionally? I want you to ask yourself that question. Just put in the chat whether, just say yes or no, whether you created that intentionally. And when you're creating things intentionally, that means that you intended to be right where you are right now. If this is not where you intended to be, you may be writing. There's different categories. We're gonna put things into a couple categories just for understanding. Okay, no, just for understanding. So I see yes. Okay, and that's what we're gonna talk about right now. CC some. So Felicia said no. CC said some. So no, you're not creating your reality. You didn't intentionally mean to land where you are right now. And CC some, right? So here's the thing. I'm going to put this in a couple categories. There are people who just float through life. Okay, for various reasons. There's a lot of reasons. We don't need to get into all those reasons because the reason doesn't matter. The what matters is what's happening. So for those of you who want to make excuses about everything, we don't care. Okay, we don't care about why. Okay, you need to understand why so that you don't continue doing that. But we don't need to make excuses, okay? The reality is the reality. We have to just look at the reality and say this is where I am and I created this somehow. Okay? Figure out how you did it and then work from there. We're going to talk about that. But there are some people who just float through life and life just happens to them. And then they wonder why they end up where they end up. Okay, sometimes they end up in a good place, sometimes they end up in a bad place, and sometimes they reroute and do all these different things. And then so that's one category. We're going to call that passively moving through life. The other category is somewhat passive and somewhat active. So making kind of decisions, right, of where you want to go, kind of understanding a little bit of where you want to go, but also just allowing things to just kind of flow. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with flow, but flow still needs to be coupled and packaged with intention. Okay. Then there's the people, and I'm sure there's a lot of different categories in between. I'm just breaking it down into three categories. That's what they're telling me to do right now. So, the third category are people who are um, nothing but intention. Okay. Now, there are good and bad parts to all three. Okay. Letting life just kind of passively moving through life is a carefree feeling. There's not a lot of pressure there. Okay. But when you're passively moving through life, you're not actively making decisions. You're not actively pivoting and doing these things and intelligently, steering your own ship. If you're not intelligently doing that, then you're going to have a lot of suffering along with a lot of peace. Okay, so there's pros and cons with all of those things. The second category of the people who are kind of here and there, like being passive, but also being active at times. There's pros and cons of that too because of the because of suffering. If you are not steering and um, and uh, and you are not uh, allowing at the same time, there's going to be more suffering. The third category of the person who is all about intention, that is great, but the caveat to that, the downside of that, is those people who want to control everything and overly controlling, overthinkers, and that creates a lot of stress. Your nervous system does not like that. So there's a lot of, like I said, there's no uh, kind of in those three categories. None of them are perfect in terms of writing your own story. The perfect combination of writing your own story, which is going to be unique to each person, your perfect combination of writing your own story is a mixture. I wouldn't do a mixture. I wouldn't do the first one. Okay, the first one is way too way too passive. A mixture between the second one and the third one. We do want to be in flow, but passiveness and being in flow are two different things. Okay, I want you to understand that. Passiveness is just sitting around like, wait, whatever happens, happens. Being in flow is still having intention. Okay, knowing that you know where you want to go, you know what story you want to write, you know what experience you want to have in this life. Okay, you're tapped in, you understand these things, and through that understanding allows you to be in flow and let go of the reins a little bit after you have taken the actions and put the intention towards it. So that is the happy mixture that works well in life in order to limit your suffering and in order for you to have pen in hand writing your own story, really taking control and action of your life. And I say control lightly because, again, we don't want to be that third category where everything is so in control and you're just like trying to control every tiny little aspect of your life and you can't just relax. Okay. We don't want to be that third category. Okay. We want to be a mixture of the second and the third. I'm going to read a comment. Okay, so Mickey said, no, inaction got me here, but I took control afterwards. Okay, good, good. Yes. And so I've seen it a lot where people are more passive in life, or and again, it doesn't have to be completely passive. There's a lot of categories in between those three that I said, like I said, but when you take inaction, when you have inaction because of fear, because of exhaustion, because of whatever, then what you're doing is you're relinquishing your power and you're saying, okay, well, I'm choosing, again, suffering's a choice. I'm choosing not to take action right now, even though everything's telling me to take action. I'm refusing to take action. So I'm willing to accept whatever those consequences are. And usually there are consequences, especially when you're getting messages and guidance and thoughts and things like that to move and you don't move. So remember that we have guiding forces within us and around us. We have guiding forces. And part of those guiding forces are us ourselves, okay? And at the end of the day, everything is us, but we're not going to get into that detail right now. But we have guiding forces. We are never alone. That's what we talked about in the last divinity session. We are never alone. We have so much force and so much power with us. And so we're always being guided in the right direction. If you're being guided in the right direction, you're not going in that direction, you will suffer. Period. Period. And the book of Rashida says that suffering is a choice. And if you all want, in order, it says, in order to limit suffering, one only needs to listen. You're listening to these forces. You're listening to yourself. If you dismantle that, if you dismiss that, then you end up going down a path where you're suffering because those messages were there to stop you from having to go down that path. And then you have to learn that lesson over and over again in a cycle. Listen to my intuition. Listen when I have a feeling of something, even when it doesn't make sense. When you move through life like that, then you can begin to write your own story. So writing your own story is not just about goals. It's not just about, I want to get to XYZ. It's also about your experience. Okay, I want to stress that because the human experience is called the human experience for a reason because it's about experience. Okay, if you are allowing yourself to suffer more than you need to suffer, then what kind of experience are you having? You're having a suffering experience mixed with some good stuff because we always have some good stuff, but we want more good stuff than bad stuff. And again, nothing is either good or bad in actuality, but we're talking about our whether we like the experience or not. That's what makes something good or bad. It's all subjective. But do you want an experience, a human experience that you enjoy more than you don't enjoy? Because we're not going to eliminate suffering, but we can limit suffering. So can we have a life experience that we enjoy? And the answer is always yes. But the question is, are you focusing on the right things? Are you taking the right actions? Are you listening to your higher self? And are you not just listening, but are you taking reactions or responses from that listening? Because knowledge without action is pointless. So if you're receiving the knowledge, but you're not taking the action from it, then no, you're not going to be going down the path of less resistance. The path of less resistance creates more joy. The path of less resistance creates more enjoyment in the human experience. And at the end of the day, we know that suffering is there for a reason. We know we suffer because it forces us sometimes or reminds us sometimes to make a change, right? That's the point of suffering is to force you to make a change when you be, oh, but only because you weren't listening already, because you get the messages without the suffering first. Okay. That's something important to remember. Message. You get the message before the suffering. The suffering only comes after you got the message repeatedly and you didn't listen. That's when the suffering comes. I want you to think right now of every single time that you don't think of every single time. Just think of one time in your life, more recently, where you went through a period of suffering or even a day of suffering. Okay, whatever you consider that. It was a horrible experience and it was suffering. Okay, you were in the condition of suffering. I want you to think of that moment and think of messages, thoughts. Remember, we talked last session about thoughts being messages as well. Messages, thoughts, gut feelings, whatever that happened prior to that multiple times before the suffering happened that had to do with that suffering, whatever that suffering was. And you'll see the correlation because there is no person on earth that that has suffered through something and if you look back it wasn't already there, like the messages weren't there beforehand because that's not how it works. I know how these things work, so if you can't think of it then you need to think deeper because I guarantee you you had messages, you had gut feelings, you had even someone tell you something, whether that was a direct message right in your face or not, that you then ignored and you kept moving down the path. You were not writing your own story. You were letting someone else, whatever else, write your story for you. And again, your story is your human experience. I'm going to read a couple comments. The worthiness coach says, "Oh, yeah, I remember when I suffered and disregarded spiritual messages." Absolutely. Okay, good. We've got the link there when for the divinity session number 3, where we talked about that passage about listening versus and suffering. That is a message. The Ascension Guide said that is a message. Sometimes the inaction comes from exhaustion. Yes, that's why the well-being of your vessel is so important. Exactly, exactly. So yeah, let's talk about that for a second. When you are listening, well, we're going to come back to that actually because they want to talk about something else. So when you are not listening to those messages that you receive, and then you move anyway, you are making a decision, you are making a choice to suffer. Know that. That's why it's so important to remember, when you get a message, listen to it. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. It doesn't have to logically make sense. Remember, our spirits are way smarter than our brains, okay? Our spirits know everything. Our brains can only process what's physically there in our environment, and what people say, like our through our senses. Our brains can only process through our physical senses. So if something is not in your reality yet, then your brain is not going to make sense of it. So we have brains for a reason. They're a good thing, right? But when it comes to spirit versus brain, always choose spirit, because spirit sees, spirit can feel, spirit can understand way more than the brain can ever understand, because not everything in our reality is physical. Okay. And I can go off on a tangent on that, but I won't, because in reality, nothing is physical. But we can see our reality through our physical senses. We experience our reality through our physical senses, and all of that goes up to the brain. But our spirit sees deeper. It sees the hidden. It sees the unseen, and things that also have not come into the reality yet. So if you get a gut feeling that says don't go down that road, it's because your spirit knows what's down that road. And it's like, no, no, no. We don't want to go down that road. We want to go down this road. But if you're not listening, then you're going to go down the bad road, and then you're going to suffer down that road. So your spirit is always trying to save you from suffering, and that is part of our survival mechanism. It is literally trying to save you from suffering. But without listening, you're going to suffer anyway. And so as you're writing your own story, what you're doing is, remember that combination. You want to take the actions, listen to your spirit, whether it makes sense or not. Every time I listen to my spirit and it doesn't make any sense at the time, it always makes sense to me later. And I always know that because I've proven that over and over again, and I trust that. I have faith in that. So anytime I receive something, I just follow it. If it's, hey, get rid of this person, hey, don't go there today, hey, blah blah blah, whatever it is, I listen faithfully. 100%. And since I started doing that, my life is freaking amazing. Okay. So I have very, very little suffering. Like I said, we're not going to completely and move away from suffering completely, because that is part of the human experience. But it's so little, I can't even I can't even count on my fingers. That's how small it is, the suffering. But in earlier in my life, I had a lot of suffering, because just like everyone else, I was ignoring things and not paying attention. I didn't understand these things. So as you understand these things, and as you start to change your life and move through your life, you begin to write your own story. So let's talk about the writing of the own story. Remember that pen is your thoughts, the pen is your emotions, that pen is your spirit, your inner world, your inner thoughts, your subconscious thoughts, not just your conscious thoughts, your actions, your inactions. All of that is in that pen. And when you put that paper is the fabric of your world, your journey. When you put that pen to paper with intention, then you can begin to write your own story. So let's break all those things down. Your thoughts are things, as they say. Your thoughts are also messages, but your thoughts are also projections of your reality. That thought is a very powerful pen. What you perceive, what you expect, you become. Your expectations create your reality. If you are thinking, oh, I always have bad luck, oh, this never happens for me, guess what? Those things are never going to happen for you. You're writing your own destiny in a negative way with those negative self-defeating thoughts. And I also want to talk about limiting beliefs because a lot of times everyone has some kind of limiting beliefs because our beliefs are conditioned. Our beliefs are groomed from the time we're a child to now to believe certain things about life, about the world, about society, about ourselves, about what we can and cannot do, about what's possible. And a lot of times people think in limitations. And if you are thinking in limitations, therein lies your problem because you can only write the story that you believe in. Message, message. You can only write the story you believe in. You're not going to write a story you don't believe in. You're going to write a story that you believe is possible. So if your beliefs are limited, your story is going to be limited, meaning your life experience is going to be limited. So if you think like, oh, I can do this, but I can't do that, let's be realistic. Let's be practical. No, I tell everyone, do not be realistic. Do not be practical with your thoughts, with your abilities, with your belief in yourself. There's no such thing as realistic. Everything is possible. Everything is possible. There's no such thing as being practical. Everything is practical if you believe it is. If you don't believe it is, then it's not practical. So that's why your thoughts are part of that pen, writing your story. If you are not able to be a master architect of your life, I want you to think about that. We're using analogies now. We're going to think of an architect building a house. If you have a limiting belief that houses all have to be the same shape, a house has to have a certain number of floors, a house has to have a door that goes this way and a window over here and blah, 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 blah. If that's your belief, then you're only going to build houses like that. Every house you live in, if you build your own houses and you build other people's houses, every house you live in will follow those guidelines. But if you are more fluid in your beliefs, if you are more open and have no limits, then you can start to build houses that are different shapes, they're different size. Maybe there's not even a front door. Maybe this, that, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? The house will still be a house. The house will still be beautiful. The house will still be interesting. It'll still be functional and do what it needs to do outside of the box of thinking of it has to look like this. And that's what we have to do with our lives. Because when you are thinking of your life, you're thinking, okay, this happens only from what you see other people doing and what you see examples in your life. I want you to begin to think outside of the box when you write your own story. I want you to start thinking about all the possibilities of things that could be outside of the stringent guidelines of what you're used to seeing. That's when you really start to really begin to excel in your life and really write a different story. Because your story is not supposed to be someone else's story. You're not supposed to follow a formula. Our lives are not formulas. We are here to experience a human experience because we are powerful and we are creators. Part of our human experience and part of our life purpose is to create here on earth. Not only are we creating whatever we're doing, but we're also creating our own life. We're creating our own path. That's why we have free will. That's not why that's why we don't just we're not pre-programmed to okay, now we're doing this and we're like robots. Okay? We make decisions because we're given all of these faculties. We have all of these faculties available to us, our soul, our thoughts, our emotions, our spirit guides. We have all of these things available to us. And it's up to us what we do with these pieces on the chessboard. What are we going to do with these pieces on the chessboard? How are we going to weave our reality? How are we going to be a master weaver and weave our reality? How are we going to be a master architect and build the most amazing house in the world? I want you to think about that. Like in back to the analogy of houses. Why do most houses all look the same? They're formulas, they're templates. But every once in a while we see a someone had outside of the box creativity and they build this interesting house. And you can see those on like Airbnb and stuff like that where people build these interesting houses. Oh, mine's going to be underground, mine's going to be this, mine's going to look like a castle meets a hut. I don't know, but whatever you want it to look like. That's the ability and that's the power of us as humans. We have the ability to create whatever it is that we want using what we have in our environment, using what we have in this illusionary reality. We have this ability. So I want you to think of your life like that because you have the ability. You have everything you need always. You always have all the material you need to build your house. It's sitting right in front of you. And whatever is not seen in front of you, as long as you continue to listen and be guided by your higher self, your soul, and all of your guiding forces, the more you continue to allow yourself to be guided, the more you will actually move down that road. And guess what? Everything will just start to appear because the reality is you are writing your own story. I want you guys to get that in your head. You are right now writing your own story, whether you're writing it to be a negative, unhappy experience, or whether you're writing that to be an amazing experience. And also, I want to say this amazing experience is subjective. It's whatever you want. You don't have to use my definition of amazing. I know what I think makes my life amazing, but that may not be what makes your life amazing. We are all individual people. So stop trying to fit into a box. We don't belong in boxes. We don't belong. We are not, um, uh, what's the word? We're not shrunken down to formulas. Okay. We are not condensed into a formula. We are too vast for a formula. We are too vast for a box or a category or stringent guidelines. You guys already know, especially if you're students of mine, you know I don't like rules. Even in when I teach, I'm like there are no rules because I'm against things like that because the reality is yes, you can create whatever rules you want because we are creators. But the other reality is equally true is that we have the ability to create whatever we want. And we don't have to stick to any stringent guidelines or rules. All right, I'm going to read a couple of comments, see what people are talking about in the chat. I just got a download from that. Thanks. Oh, you're welcome. Cece said that was the action item from the last divinity session. I have been listening and following my gut and hunches. I love that. I love that. Our lives are not formulas. Right, exactly. Working on limitlessness. Yes, yes. It takes time to understand things and learn more about it first, then expand the possibilities and creative approaches. Exactly, exactly. Excuse me. Yes, and so when they are talking, and they is the cosmic collective consciousness are talking about you writing your own story. Why they're talking about this right now is because some of you need to understand. Some of you needed to hear this message today. All of you needed to hear this message today, and then I want you to again think about your life and what story you're writing. And in fact, they're giving me some homework for you guys right now. They want you to actually write a story, write the story of the rest of your life right now. Maybe not right this second because maybe that's going to take you some time, but that's your homework right now. I want you to write your story for the rest of your life. Just write the story. What happens? And I want you to find yourself as you're writing the story. I guarantee you're gonna catch yourself limiting yourself. You're going to catch yourself tiny little limitations. Some of you will catch it a lot, and some of you will catch it just a little, like a little tiny little things here and there that you may be limiting yourself. Write your story, but remember when you write your story that there's a law of impermanence, and that nothing is ever going to be 100% perfect all the time. And so you will have peaks and valleys and you will still have to pivot, but your story is your story. Once you write your story, that's going to be your story as long as you continue to move down that path and as long as you continue to want that story. Because sometimes we change as we go down our path. But if we have a map, if we have a roadmap to where we want to go, then we can begin to maneuver and make sure we end up there because that's our power. That's your power. Is you have the ability to write your story. So I want you to write your story with no limitations. No limitations. And then take action, okay? But not only action, make sure your thoughts are aligned. Make sure your inner world is aligned with where you want to go because the inner world is going to affect the outer world. So if you write this beautiful story, but you're not checking to make sure all the pieces are together, meaning inside of yourself, then that story is not going to happen because your inner world is writing a different story than you just wrote on that paper. Remember, your inner world is writing that story. So you can write that story on a piece of paper, but you have to make sure your inner world is aligned with that outer world. And then you can begin to move down that path with precision, and it'll be a path of least resistance. It will be because that's how you created it. So whatever it is that you may be limiting yourself, whatever reality you are in right now, whatever you are currently experiencing, I know a couple of you said, no, the reality that I'm in right now is not one that I intentionally wrote. Then write your story and figure out where you are now and how do you get there from here. Don't go back in the past and say, oh, I should have would have done it. None of that matters. Okay. We're not going to woe is me. We're not going to be victims of our past. Okay. We're not going to be victims of our past decisions or our past inactions. You have a moment to start right now. Forget about the past. Forget about everything you did, didn't do, whatever. Okay. Start right now because you still have tons of time to write your own story. You still have so many more experiences to have, and you can change your experience right now in this very moment. There are no limitations. And even if you say, well, I don't see how I can get from here to there, you can get there. And that's part of the thing. If you have faith in yourself, faith in your path, faith in your power, then you know that at the end of the day, you'll get there. And it doesn't matter if you don't know all the details. You don't have to know all the details. That's what faith is about. But we're not having faith in something outside of ourselves. We're having faith in ourselves because you know your power. Yes, self trust. So CC says sometimes it's hard to fight the programming of society. Got to get the inner world right. Yes. And this is why here at Mystic Temple, I'm always having you guys, and Cosmic Collective Consciousness is always having you guys evaluate yourself. Self understanding and shadow work and understanding what's going on and being able to really shift what's happening inside of you, being able to shift that is so important. If you're able to do that, everything starts to change. And if I give you guys plenty of tools. If you're new here, go to the Mystic Temple go to the Mystic Temple YouTube channel, go to Mystic Circle TV. You can go to the Mystic Temple podcast, and you can also join the Mystic Temple Telegram group. And all the resources that you need are there for free. All the resources that you need are there. And if you want to take it a step further, then join mysticuniversity.net, mysticuniversity.net. Join Mystic University, and we go even deeper and more concentrated and more giving you even more tools that you need. But whatever entry point you want to come in and be involved, get into the entry point, okay? And you will start to see your life change. You will absolutely start to see your life change because your inner world reflects your outer world reflects your inner world. Your inner world is writing the story. Okay? And if you can get that under control, which you can, and it doesn't take long. Okay? Anyone who has been in yes, our Pathways to Divine Consciousness and Fulfillment program that is a partnership between Mystic University and Mystic Temple. That program, people have seen, oh my God, so much life change already. Okay. And at Mystic University, all of the points of entry, like I said, through Mystic Temple, through Mystic University, your life will change. I can guarantee you that. Your life will change. If you're paying attention to it and you actually apply what's being taught and you actually move through life in the way that we're providing for you, the guidance that we're providing. You can absolutely change your life. And you will see that you're only good. Oh, okay, I like that. Monique says you're only good as your pivot. Yes, yes. So I want you to think about that and all of that in the context of your life right now. Write that story and see when you write that story, I want you to write the full story all the way to the end. Okay? Write the full story. And then I want you to read the story. And as you're reading the story, I want you to read it multiple times. As you're reading it, I want you to find the parts of yourself inside that reject different parts of that don't believe that, say, I don't know, that doubt that. That's where your shadow work is needed. You'll feel it. If you're paying attention, you'll feel it as you're reading that story and you're saying, well, this is what's happening in my life, or this is what blah, blah, blah. But a part of you is like, I don't know how that's going to happen. That's doubt. That's shadow work needed. Or part of like that, like, that's really not possible. Part of you doesn't fully believe it. A part of you is not on board. That's your shadow work. That's where you need to dig deep and start dismantling those limiting beliefs and start lifting that part of yourself up. And some of that may be healing that's necessary from trauma. Some of that may be conditioning and programming from society or from your parents or whatever. Whatever that is, we have tools for you that you can use to work on that yourself. And then we also have, if you need help from me, you can always go to monicabay.com and book something with me. We also have the Wisdom Network, which is I have 14 practitioners underneath me that I've trained, that are healers, that are powerful healers, that are powerful spiritual life coaches, and that are powerful hypnotists. Okay, so everything you need, here you go. Here you go. Whichever, pick your entry point, whatever entry point you want to use. But literally, I have built an entire empire of resources for you guys because this is my life purpose and I'm serious about my life purpose. Okay. So, whatever it is that you need, we have something for you. I want you to remember that. So, don't feel like you're in this alone because, first of all, you're never alone. But also, we're here for you. Mystic Temple's here for you. The Wisdom Network is here for you. I'm here for you, Monica Bay. And also the I said Mystic Temple, Mystic University, all here for you. Okay, we also have Medisoul Music. We can get into all the things. We have Medisoul Music. If you just need a pick me up, if you need to remember your power, if that's a free music platform. Okay, we also have Mystic Circle TV, which we're about to add more new shows to right now. Which, by the way, Mystic Circle TV is in 600 million households across the world now. Okay, just started only 5 years ago. So Mystic Circle TV also has programming and things like that for you. So literally, at Mystic Circle TV is free. Medisoul Music is free. All the things with Mystic Temple, all those entry points that I mentioned are free. Okay, so there's free, and then there's some that's paid. Pick your entry point, whichever you want to go to, but it's available to you. Okay, and everyone, no matter what level you choose, has powerful things that can change your life. Okay, so start writing your story, and remember that you are the power. You are the only person that should be holding that pen, not anyone else. So write your story, live your life, experience your life. Don't let life pass you by without experiencing it. We are here to experience the human experience. So remember that. That's all I have to say for today. But I will see you guys next week on the channel Wisdom Circle. And I will say in the divine language, which essentially means peace be unto you, Zora Kumti. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Wait for the song. If you are new here, please subscribe, like, depending on what channel you're on, please follow, subscribe, like, whatever it is based on where you are. Yes, and make sure you share this with other people so that they're aware of all the wonderful information that the Cosmic Collective Consciousness is giving out to people. If you have someone that you know that is interested in this stuff, you have someone that you know that would really benefit from these messages, please forward this, please share the channel, the podcast, wherever you're listening to this or watching this. Please share. And don't forget to go to mysticcircletv.com.
Build my empire with a flick of the wrist. Dreams on my vision board, now they exist. I'm the chef, life's my Michelin dish. Every L I took, now is diamonds I twist. Yeah, reality bent, I'm the architect. Yeah, speak it, see it, cash the check. Yeah, universal base, I'm the main connect. Yeah, got a hotline to fade, watch what's next. Manifestation queen, crown on my head. Words turn to gold, every line I say. What I think I make, no between. Life's my canvas and I'm pristine. I said I get it, now it's parked in the drive. Custom leather seats, that energy vibe. People doubted, said I never arrive. Now they eating their words with a side of humble pie. I'm the script writer, plot twist supplier. Turn a flat line, dreaming to a live wire. $1 million